I remember my homeland in Syria as a place full of happiness and joy. Remembering my grandmother cooking delicious food, my brother, cousins, and I racing on our bikes and playing football in the street. I was the only girl in the pack of five. Because I was around the boys, I just wanted to look like them. So I always kept my hair cut short. And because of the matching haircuts with my brother, people often thought we were twins. I remember the first time I have been to a classroom. It was with my auntie who was working as a school principal. So she used to take me to her work with her. I instantly fell in love with education. My auntie wasn't the only person who instilled the importance of education in me. My dad and all his cousins were teachers. As my love of education grew, that meant to be a good student, going to school every day, working hard on my exams, and achieving academic excellence. Life was happy and peaceful. I was enjoying my life. However, things seemed to change. In 2011, our lives changed drastically when the conflict in Syria began. Going to school was no longer safe. Playing football in the street, it was too dangerous. My dad could not go to his work as a teacher as he used to. As the months passed, things got worse. Moving from a place to another, it was too risky, and people lived in fear. Essentials were too expensive and hard to find. At the school, we were worried about our safety more than focusing on our studies. Because of how bad the situation was, Syrians had to make a challenging and heartbreaking choice. Living in Syria during the conflict or leave. Almost 2 years after the conflict, in 2013, my dad thought it was best for us to flee to Jordan. My hometown, Dar'a, is just on the border with Jordan, so making it a practical choice. However, for me, it was devastating news. I didn't want to leave my school, my family, my friends, and everything familiar. Despite my fear and resistance, my family, including my dad and my uncle, they were preparing for us to go. And the preparations took months, so I was so hopeful they were not too serious about it. Until a day, my uncle found somebody to take us closer to the Jordanian border. That moment, I realized we cannot stay in Syria anymore. And the night before leaving, my dad asked us to pack the most important things. And on the following day, we put all our bags in the vehicle. And as the driver started the engine, I was quietly saying my goodbyes to my house, to the streets where I used to play football, to my primary school, and to my country. And as the driver has driven further, the sadder I have become. We eventually arrived to the border, where we had to stay till night, before almost the 3 hours walk began towards the Jordanian border. While walking, my dad realized I was struggling to carry my bag. And he came to me. I was about 14 years old that time. And he said, Muzoon, do you want a support with your bag? Because I can see you cannot carry it. I said, yes, please. And then when my dad carried the bag, he told me, can I ask you something? What have you brought? I saw the shock on my dad's face when I told him I brought my school books. I brought nothing but the books which I believed they will be my hope in the new place that I know nothing about. My dad simply responded, are you crazy? I told my dad I will study by these books if there is no school in the camp. And then we arrived to Za'atari camp, and it was a shock for all of us. We had to stay in a hangar which contains so many people because we arrived at night. And we told my dad, we don't want to stay here. Please find a plan, a solution, just we want to go back. And he said, let's spend the night today and let's think about it in the morning. So on the following day, we had to go and collect tents and other materials to set up them there and to start our new life. The tent was so small, and you had to set up that tent to be a bedroom, a kitchen, and welcoming visitors, and literally do everything in that tent. The kitchen where we used to cook in the camp, it was shared with dozens of people in the same block where we were living. Water, we had to go somewhere and fill up the buckets and then bring the water for cleaning purposes. And there was no electricity. And even making calls was almost impossible. But there was something on mind that concerned me the most. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to learn. So my dad started to ask everyone he knows about school, if there is a school in the camp. And then he was told, yes, there is a school in another block, a bit far from where I was living, but it will be closing soon. However, the good news is there will be another school opening in the summertime, even on Saturdays, for students to catch up with their learning. But I told my dad we want to go to that school before the other one opens, just to get sense of what education looks like in the camp. And once we were there, I realized classrooms, they were hangars, and each hangars serve as a classroom. And the teachers, they were Jordanians, and they were teaching the Jordanian curriculum. I was so happy to meet the teachers and making new friends. And after that, I enrolled in the summer school. I felt my hope was restored. I was over the moon to go back to the classroom, the place I love the most, the place that has shown me no matter what the challenges are, I can dream for a brighter future. However, I saw many girls my age, about the age of 14, they were thinking about getting married. And most of them, they come for a day or sometimes for a week, and then they drop off. I thought to myself, I could do something. As I consider education something I love and important, I want this for every child in the camp. So I started to speak to my classmates and even to girls from other classrooms to encourage them about the importance of education and to keep the hope alive and to come to school. Because we need educated generation to rebuild our country. And after that, UNICEF asked me to join them for a campaign back to school. The campaign was effective as we used to go from tent to tent, speaking with parents, with girls and boys to come back to school and to learn. And for me, I used every opportunity in the camp to speak about the plight of children, especially for education, through media or any opportunity I get, to speak about our needs and what it needs to be done to improve the lives of children. And after a while, I moved to live in another camp. It is called Azraq. It is also in Jordan. Azraq was a quieter, less crowded, and even more organized camp. I did the same. I continued to use my voice to tell everyone about the importance of education. And also, I was going to school myself to learn. And I made so many friends. In 2015, me and my family had the opportunity to resettle in the United Kingdom. In the UK, we had new challenges. Starting over again, it wasn't easy for us. Not only because of the language barrier, not only because of the weather, but also because the educational system in the UK was so much different to the education I experienced in Jordan and Syria. However, after getting used to my life day after day in the UK and having a sense of normality again, I haven't forgotten those who are still in need to speak about their challenges. So I shared my story in every possible opportunity, either through media, events, or going to see children on the ground in affected countries who are living in emergencies. But most importantly, I use my voice for them. I have done some educational activities with Malala Fund for a while before joining UNICEF as the youngest ever and first refugee to be a Global Goodwill Ambassador. As I'm telling my story, either starting from my happy childhood, experiencing war, and fleeing my homeland and living in refugee camps, and resettling in the United Kingdom, and becoming a global voice, there is one thing has given me hope, and it is education. Because it has been my guiding light, my symbol of a bright future. But we need to remember, there are still 280 million children out of school between the age of 5 and 17. This is a very shocking reality to hear this figure. But also, it is a reminder for us about the underfunding for education and the lack of resources and the challenges including inequalities, conflicts, and so on that prevent children to access their rights. Yes, my story is unique, but it is not isolated. Children globally, they are facing similar obstacles and challenges. And my role with UNICEF allowed me to go and see this on the ground, either in Chad, Mali, or even in Jordan, where I returned to the camp where I used to live. There is one story I will never forget. It is a girl called Yukora, who I have met in Chad. Yukora was about the age of 14 when I met her. She has gone through unimaginable violence and loss in her life. She lost 7 members of her family by a suicidal attack by Boko Haram. By somehow, Yukora managed to escape, and she was living with relatives in Chad. She was recovering from the injuries and the trauma she has experienced. However, when I met Yukora, she told me something, it has inspired me so much. She said, no matter what I have gone through, I can smile because I am at the classroom. I can learn. When she said that, for me, that was the moment I realized Yukora's story is a testament for all of us to realize one thing: those children who are suffering, they are full of hope, determination, and the will for a bright future despite what they have gone through. Yukora's story is also a call for us to participate either by policies, by funding, awareness, or simply by just raising our voices and talk about those challenges children are facing. Every child deserves to hope, to dream, not only to survive, but to thrive. And together, we can make this dream a reality. Thank you.